Now we are going to use the TI-84 graphing calculator. You're going to learn how to do a couple of things with it today. And specifically what we're going to talk about is graphing a polynomial. And I have the polynomial written right here. F of x is equal to x squared minus 6x minus 6. And what you're going to learn today is how to input the equation into your calculator, how to set the window, which is how you're going to look at it, how to display the graph, how to find the zeros, and how to find the vertex of that polynomial. So let me go ahead and erase this line since it's going to be in my way. So the first thing we need to do is look at that polynomial, and before you graph it, just look at it, and what is that going to look at? That is a second degree polynomial, or a quadratic equation. The leading coefficient here is positive, so you're going to have a smiley face. It's going to look something like this. I don't know where the vertex is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be skinny or wide, but we know it's going to open up and it'll be on the bottom. So we have a mental picture of what this graph should look like. If we go over to our calculator now and you hit y is equal to, you come up with all of these y1, y2, y3, and so forth. And y is the same thing as f of x. You could just put y is equal to, but you're in advanced pre-calculus now, so we're going to be using f of x for functions rather than y most frequently, but you need to be able to switch back and forth. So watch the buttonology. You will see in this screen right here the buttons that I actually push, and then you'll be able to watch the cursor as I push them. So the first thing we're going to do is put in the variable x, and then we'll square that. So that is x squared minus 6x minus 6. And now we've entered the equation, and you can see in this window up here that that is what we have put into the equation. And then to graph it, you simply hit the graph button right here, and you open up and it graphs in your calculator, just like a camera that you might have, or a lens or something like that. You only see a certain window, and the window is what is shown in the screen, and you can control what you see and what you can't see. The standard default window, x goes from -10 to 10, and y goes from -10 to 10. So as you can see with this graph, you do have the smiley face. It is a parabola that opens up, but you can't see where the vertex is because the y value would be less than -10. So let's look at adjusting the window so that we can see the vertex. So if you go to Window, again x is set -10 to 10, y is -10 to 10, and then you have the scale, and that's where the tick marks are. So if you go back to the graph, you see each of these tick marks, that represents 1. So within the window, we need to open up the y window, and rather than -10, let's try negative, and make sure you hit the negative button rather than minus, -20, and then we'll go ahead and graph that. Now you can see the parts of the graph that you will need to see to answer the questions that you'll need to answer in pre-calculus. So you can see the parabola. You can see that it crosses the x-axis at 2 points, so it has 2 zeros. You can see it crosses the y-axis right here, and that point where x is 0, if you go back over to your original equation, where x is 0, f of x or y will equal -6, so the graph seems to make sense there. So you have displayed the graph. There are many different ways to do the same thing with the calculator. If you use the zoom feature, that is the zoom on the scale. Zoom 6 is standard, and that takes you back to -10 to 10, -10 to 10. You can also do zoom in, zoom out. So if it isn't quite big enough and you want to zoom out, you can go down to 3 and it'll zoom out a little bit for you. That obviously isn't enough. You can scroll down. If you want to do a square or a decimal, or for a trig function, or for an integer, or if you're looking at statistics. Zoom fit, which is 0, you can either scroll down to that cursor and hit enter, or you could just hit zoom 0. And I don't like to use zoom fit because it normally really doesn't fit what I'm looking at. So you can see that you've got the parabola, you've got your x-intercepts, but if you go over here and look at the window, that window goes from negative 15 up to 156. And we really don't need that. So manually setting the window is an important feature to be able to see what you need to see to answer the questions you will need to answer on your homework and to understand the concepts. This is just a tool. Okay, so x is negative 10 to 10, y is negative 20 to 10. And we get a pretty good feel for what the parabola looks like. You can see it crosses the x-axis here at about negative 1, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8-ish over here. So you kind of get an idea. Your polynomial is not easily factorable, so you could go to the quadratic equation if you wanted to find your zeros, or your calculator allows you to find the zeros. If you use the second calculate button, and you can calculate the value of a function at any x value. You put in an x, it gives you the y value. You can calculate a zero. You can calculate minimums, maximums, intersections of two functions. And then when you start getting into 6 and 7, those are calculus functions that we'll do next year. So we want to find the zero of the function, which is where the function crosses the x-axis. The first thing it asks you for now is the left bound. And the calculator needs to know where to look. Because there are two zeros, you need to select a left bound and then a right bound and then an estimate for each of the zeros. So let's look at the zero over here near negative 1 first. So you need to put your cursor to the left of that zero. So once you get to the left of it, hit enter, go to the right and hit enter, and then it asks you to guess and just get somewhere close, and it has to be in between the right and left bound. And then when you guess, it tells you that your zero is at negative 0.8729833. You could have calculated that exactly using the quadratic formula, but if you can use a decimal and want to do it quickly, this is one way to do it. So that's 1 0. To calculate the other zero, when you go to calculate 0, and it asks for a right and a left bound, you just need to be left of this 0, hit enter, go to the right of that 0, hit enter, and then when you guess, and you'll notice that there's a bracket up here that shows you where the left and the right bounds are. You just need to be in between those two. And you don't have to be that precise because the calculator is pretty powerful, but on some of the more advanced calculations, it will take longer for the calculator to find right answer. So this gives you your second zero. Let's just try and see what happens if you try to calculate a zero and you have two zeros within that area. So we'll have to do, let's do a left bound to the left of negative 1. That's good. And then we'll do a right bound that is to the right of the second zero. So now if you look at your two brackets, you have two zeros included in the brackets. So let's actually go halfway in between the two, about, and hit enter for our guess. And it happens to pick this one, and it's weird because it picks whichever one it finds first depending on how it calculated. So you need to make sure when you are finding your zeros that you bracket only 1 0 at a time. And if you can't tell if you've bracketed more than 1 0, you need to change your window to zoom in to make sure that you've done that. So that's how you find your zeros. Now the vertex all the way down here at the bottom, that's also an easy thing to find because you remember that's the minimum value of this function. So again, using second to calculate, you're looking for, in this case, it would be a minimum. And then you have to do the right and left bound again. So you need to start out to the left of that minimum, to the right of the minimum, and then go somewhere close to it in between the left and right bound. And it tells you that the minimum is at, it has 3.000017 and negative 15. It's actually 3 and negative 15. Your calculator, when you get out to that many significant digits, can have rounding errors in them. So the correct answer for the minimum of this would be 3, negative 15. So you could actually come over here if you wanted to and rewrite this equation for f of x. Let me get my pen active if I can. Well, I'm not going to get that active, but you could rewrite this as x minus 3 quantity squared minus 15 using the vertex form for your equation, if you remember how to complete the square and do that from last year. So that is how you put together and graph and understand a polynomial.